Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to fly a flight in an MD11 from some of the Honolulu Islands. I'm going to show you in this how we are going to set up this flight. This is going to be an advanced flight in a special aircraft. I love the PMDG MD11. This is going to be how a real airline will do this to set this up and show you the difference between setting up a flight in the default aircraft and FSX and something that's more in depth. Another thing you had asked for is you wanted me to show you how to do a runway sidestep. So this is going to be it. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to initially set this aircraft up to land on runway 8 left at Honolulu International Airport, and then we're going to sidestep to runway 8 right. Now we're going to be doing a localizer to runway 8 left, so this is a non-precision approach. There is no glide slope. And there's going to be some tools on this chart that we could use to help us with a glide slope that the aircraft will be able to simulate. Now, it's going to be hard to kind of go over this map with you right now because it's I can't point to stuff, so if you don't understand what I'm saying, it's going to be hard to describe without being able to look at it. Alright, so at the very top it says Honolulu, Hawaii. That's the city we're going to be at. This big print, the LOC, runway 8 left, it stands for localizer, runway 8 left at Honolulu International Airport, and then it gives the airport identifiers. Going back over to the top left, it gives you the identifier for this, which is IHNL, which will pop up on the MFD on the aircraft. The frequency we're going to tune is 111.7. Our approach course is going to be 079. Our runway leading edge landing area is going to be 12,300 feet with the touchdown zone at 13 feet above sea level, and our airport elevation is 13 feet above sea level. The next box right below that we're just going to ignore right now. That's about different categories of weather. The box right after that is describing the type of runway lighting that we have. And then the missed approach, which is very important, it states that we're going to climb and then turn to a heading of 200, and we'll climb to 5,000 feet, and then we'll intercept the Honolulu Vortac radial 171 and fly back to Ilana, and we'll intercept and hold there at 13.9 DME while we continue to climb to 5,000 and await further instruction. Our ATIS channel is going to be 127.9. To contact Honolulu Center for approach, it's 118.3. Honolulu Tower is 118.1. Ground control is 121.9, and clearance delivery is 121.4, which we're not going to use ATC. Now, the bottom is a map, a top-down view of where we're going to be flying. All those little peaks with the numbers next to it are mountains and antennas, then it says their height. Then you also have little points on the map that are telling us they're the waypoints and the altitudes that we need to be at. Or the distance, the altitude we need to be at and the distance away from the vortex that we're going to be. So if you look where the arc kind of turns into this feather, it says that Selic is our initial point fix, and it's saying that it's the heading that we should be at no lower than 4200. Then at SIGPEP, it says that we should be at 2,300 feet. And then down to FEG2, which would be 7.8 nautical miles away from the runway. And then our last DME is 242 Honolulu, which will let you know that that's the outer marker. And then we will land. That's that beeping light, is when you fly over where it says the LOM, IAF, when that beeps, that's how you know where we're at. Alright. And then below it gives the Honolulu a channel VOR to listen to. The Vortac itself is 114.8, and it gives the identifier Morse code. And then the localizer channel off of that is 111.7, and it'll give you the Morse code identifier for that. So we're going to be paying attention to Ilana, which is down. If you follow that line that says R171 down to the bottom of the map, it says Ilana. Honolulu 13.9 in the air. That means it's a distance of 13.9 from the Honolulu thing. We're going to be building this arc into the computer. This is called a 13.9 degree or 13.9 distance arc around the Honolulu VOR. And we could also just enter this right into the computer, select the localizer runway 8 left with an Ilana transition, and it'll build this right into it. But we're going to actually type these point bearing and distance things into the computer. It's not as hard as you think. Down at the bottom, it gives you a horizontal view of your altitudes and where you should be at. So at FEG2, you see the 230 underline. We should be at 230, and we're going to be on a heading of 079. and then we'll go to the runway, and if at the end of the runway we don't touch down, then we will do our missed turn, and it's saying that we have a right turn. We're heading a 200 on the Honolulu radial 171 to Alana. That's what the top part of that means. And then you'll see like a little angle. It says 3.06 degrees. That's going to come into play later, and it'll make more sense to you when I go over it with the computer, or once we get into the approach and I set up for the approach. Down below is our different categories. If we're at 460 feet, we don't see the runway, we're not going to make a landing, which is not going to be a problem. Alright, so that's basically the nut and bolts of what we're going to do on this off of this approach chart. I know it seems extremely confusing right now, but once we start flying, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I wish I had knew of a way that I could draw on this as I talk, so it would make more sense to you, but until I figured it out, we're just going to have to look at it, and like I said, it'll make more sense in the airplane. So let's get on in there and start flying this. Hello, CJ. Welcome here. We're going to be doing a flight in an MD11. This is by PMDG. I bought this aircraft while you were down here. We're going to be flying from Hilo International to Honolulu International. I'm going to show you how to set up a localizer DME and how to you asked for a sidestep on a runway, so we're going to line up at runway 8 left to pretend that there's debris on the runway or something, and we're going to be told that we need to go to 8 right, and we will hand fly it and land it on that runway if all goes well. Hopefully I don't crash it onto that runway. PMDG's aircraft are very intense on frame rates. When you first load them, it takes about 20 seconds for them to load up. You have an initialization phase. But I'm starting off in a cold dark state for you. I'm going to go through a whole process of flight planning and how to fly this aircraft. I'm going to cover a bunch of stuff. This is very similar to flight planning would be in a 747, and again, this is in preparation for our St. Martin flight. Only that'll be in a 747 and not an MD11, but they're both heavy aircraft. They both burn fuel at a decent rate. One thing you'll notice is that this aircraft only has 3 engines and not 4. It'll give you the basic idea of how we're going to plan this. Now, I'm using different tools on my laptop. I'm using FS Build version 2.4 to build the flight plan, and that's calculating us at about a 32-minute flight today at 222 nautical miles, and we're only going to fly it to about 1,800 feet today because we are going very short. I don't want to climb too high to try and dive bomb down. I went over that approach chart with you, and I'll show you how we build that arc. You could also just totally skip that, building that arc, and just pull up the localizer runway 18 left in here, and it'll put all that in there for you. But I like pushing the buttons and building it myself, and it only takes a couple seconds to build it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on into the airplane. We're now in a cold and dark cockpit. There's no power to this aircraft, no ground power, nothing. So what we're going to do is, first step is we're going to come to the overhead panel, flip on the battery, turn on the emergency power, on the emergency lights, on the evacuation, start turning on our our inertial reference systems, the IRSs, and when you turn on the first one, it's going to initiate the cargo fire test. That's what you just heard, and we're going to do the rest of the fire test.
Engine 1, fire. Engine 2, fire. Engine 3, fire.
Alright.
Engine 1,
Got
fire.
that test done. That needs to be on auto. Everything in here should be in auto. Right now, everything that's off is supposed to be off, and as we start this aircraft up, everything's going to shut off, and these systems are going to take control on their own. I'm going to go ahead and connect the power, and we'll get some air in here, because if it's raining, we're going to end up having so now we have those, we're going to get fogged out. So now we have those connected, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the power. And you'll hear that there goes the air conditioners turning on. You can see the packs are all shutting off. These are supposed to be on because it's blowing through one thing right now. And we have our gallery power and our external power connected. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start programming our FMS. We cannot move this aircraft. It's going to be about 10 minutes. The IRS thing initializes our location. You can see right here it says no taxi. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to go to the back to menu to go to the main menu. Oh, FMC. It says right down here I gotta align the IRS. So we're gonna click the initial reference page and click initialize IRS. Now it's gonna start initializing it. We are gonna go ahead and fly from PHTO, and we're gonna fly to Honolulu, so that's PHNL. We don't have a flight plan stored, so we're just going to hit accept. We're not going to be flying to any alternate airports. We're not going to use an alternate route. I do not have a saved route in here, so I don't need to worry about a company route. Flight number, we could just put, this would be an American Airlines 1, 2, 3, 4. Put that in there. Our cruise level is only going to be 1,800 feet. Actually, I think we could just do it this way. Yeah, 1,800. And our cost index is going to just be 80. Cost index is a ratio of the fuel to time, basically. The higher the cost index, the less fuel economy you're going to use, but you'll get to your location quicker. A lot of airlines have a set number that you'll program in there, and it helps them with their fuel costs. On to the next page now. Alright, we have 1,500 pounds of fuel on board. We're going to just go ahead and load up 8,500 pounds of fuel, so put 85.0 in there. And with this, right now, we can just left click it, right click it, it's going to pull up that number, the 0 fuels, 3, and then left click, and it'll put it in there. Right click, left click, right click, left click. And that's just going to basically build some numbers in here so we can start programming this for now. And we're going to go over here. This is our fuel page. And we said we're going to have a block fuel of 85.0. That's 85,000 pounds. And then we're going to go to the menu page, go to shortcuts, and then click refuel because we need to put we only have 1,500 pounds of fuel in there. We need to put 70,000 pounds of fuel into the tanks. If you hit this mode here, so you see FMS, you will see these numbers pop up. If you add them up, it's going to equal to 85,000 pounds of fuel. That's what we have currently. That's what we need. Once you hit start, you'll notice down here that in the blue it says refueling, and you'll see the numbers climbing. You look up at the overhead panel, you'll see that the tanks are starting to fill up. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to our flight plan, and we're going to build our flight plan in here. The flight plan that I have is going to be, we're going to use a departure of the Paris 4 to Paris. You click on the airport and click SID for standard instrument departure. We only have one, that's Paris 4. Okay, we're going to go ahead and use runway 26. That's almost a 10,000 foot runway. And we're going to do the Paris 4 departure. There is no transition, so we're just going to hit insert. And what that's going to do, that's going to put all that into there. And before we even leave Paris, the SID, we're going to be at the top of our climb. That's what this TC is, 18,000 feet. Okay. So now then, after Paris, we are going to fly to Lavis. So we're going to go ahead and click on the Paris thing, and now we have the next. If we had an airway like a J135 or whatever, we would click on that, enter it in there, then our next waypoint. But we're just going to go right to our next one, which is Lavas, L-A-V-A-S, insert. And if we look down now, we have a discontinuity. We're going to leave that in there. Now we need to put our SID in here, so we're going to click on, our star. So we'll click on Lavis because that's our last waypoint, and now we're going to do the star. And I said we're going to use the localizer for runway 18 left. So there's localizer 18 left. Our minimum profile for this flight is, I don't even know. We'll just go ahead and make it up at 1,000 feet. It's listed on the chart. Insert that. Transition is, we're going to use the Alana transition. And now I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to delete all these out because we're going to enter that manually. So we're going to go ahead and do clear. Clear. Now I'm doing all this on the ground because this is going to be a short flight. Normally you do this en route. Like I said, this is going to go very fast because it's a very short flight. I'm going to go over some other things with the airplane with you. So I'm setting up this now so now we don't have to deal with it later. I want everything all cleared out. Okay, now I kind of cut the video as I deleted some of those extra waypoints and just to save time and space. You don't need to see all that. So, alright. Right now, this is where we're going to be. Top of descent is over here. Alana is going to be our approach, alright? So now, dude, if you look at our chart says that we need to cross Alana at no lower than 42,000 feet. So we need to be above that. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and put a plus sign in here. And what that's going to say is we need to be above the number that we're going to enter. So we'll put plus 4200. And we're going to enter that into Alana. Slash plus 4200. Basically, this is saying that it doesn't matter about the speed, but we need to be above 4,200 feet. So we'll go ahead and plug that in there. Oh, wrong place. We'll plug that into here. Okay, so what that's now saying is that we will need to, and that's changing our speed because we're going to be below the 10,000 points. So now that's saying that we're going to fly into here. What we need to do now is enter our place, distance, bearing thing to build the arc. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to use the H&L, and we're going to do the arc at 191, 211, 231, and the 254 radials at 13.9 distance. And that's just going to kind of build a dot around it, and then it's going to connect those dots to build our arc. So I'll go over here to the plan, and we will zoom out. Oops, I increased. Clear. Okay. There we go. This arrow right here is representing that that's our top of descent. That's where we're going to start our descent. So now we're going to cross this Alana at 42,000 feet. Then I'm going to go ahead and build an arc off of here. And there will be a discontinuity over here, because we're going to hand fly it toward the localizer. And then we'll go ahead and do our cross step. So we're going to go ahead and put our place bearing distance in here. Remember, we got to enter it as HNL slash 191. That's our bearing off of the Honolulu VOR, and the distance away is going to be 13.9. And you remember seeing the arc, it does say HNL 13.9 arc that we discussed earlier in the video. And now we're going to go ahead and put that right after Alana. And you'll see it says PBD01, place, bearing, distance, first one. Okay, so our next waypoint is going to be HNL slash 211 slash 13.9, and put it in after. Here's place bearing 2. We'll do it again for the third one, and again these are every 20 degrees, which will give us a good little spacing. HNL. If you really wanted to be more accurate with it, you could do this every 5, 10, 15 degrees, but 20 will work. 231, and again 13.9. Enter. And we're going to put our last one here. It's HNL slash 254 slash 13.9. Okay. Alright, we're going to decrease it now, and I'm going to walk through so you can see this. Ignore these purple lines that you see right here. This is the missed approach, because we will come into this area, intercept that one VOR, and then fly toward Alana. We'd hold at Alana until we were cleared to try again. Ignore that purple thing. What we're going to follow is this line that comes in right here to Alana, and then we turn a little bit and then follow these. So we're going to go ahead and just do what's called a step through. Alright, so you see that PD4. I'm going to go ahead and delete this SIGTEP because we're going to skip that. By the time we get to here, instead of making a sharp turn, we're just going to... we can just leave it. Alright. We'll leave that discontinuity in there. That's fine. We're going to be hand flying this. If you wanted the autopod to continue flying that on VNAV, or I'm sorry, LNAV, you would have to connect it. If it hits here and you haven't told the autopilot to do anything, it's just going to maintain this heading until you do something. Okay. So you'll see here's our arc. This is the first place, second place, third place, fourth place. Then by here we'll start our turn to intercept the localizer. This isn't an ILS, it's just a localizer. There's going to be no, um, there'll be no glide slope. Okay. So now we have that programmed in there. We need to change these numbers because if you'll notice here, it says that we need to cross this at above, but then we're going to start descending. Well, this is going to be a really sharp descent. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to change /+420. Oops. And then this one we want to be at 4200. So we oops. /4200 enter. So we're going to go ahead and descend. We have that initialized now. We have our route in there. We have our runway. Now we need to calculate our takeoff and approach. Now I've done this already using TopCat, which is another program. This is TopCat stands for Takeoff and Landing Performance Calculation Tool. You enter in the weather. You enter in our runway conditions, the barometric pressure, what airport we're at, and what air temperature and the runway, and then hit calculate, and this is where I got these numbers from that we're going to enter. So first you need to check the weather. So we're going to tune the ATIS.
Kilo, airport information, Tango. Pute 128 Zulu. Wind Pute 60, Pute 7. Visibility greater than 20 miles. In light rain. Sky conditions 900. Scattered. Clouds at 3,500. Temperature Pute 2.19. Altimeter 3006. ILS. Runway
Okay.
Pute 6 in use. Landing in.
So with that information entered in here, the wind speed and direction, the temperature in Celsius, our altimeter, and the fact that it's raining, so we're going to change runway condition to wet. I have programmed our configuration for this takeoff that our takeoff weight is going to be 426,723 pounds. And we're going to set flaps configuration to optimal. We're going to use normal takeoff configuration for the throttles, and we're going to use an air conditioning with packs off. And we're also going to use anti-ice off. We don't need anti-ice in the tropics. It's 21 degrees Celsius outside. If it was below 10 degrees Celsius with the rain, we'd have the things on. Alright, so what we're going to look for is a margin of 500 feet or more. And according to TopCat, if we put our thrust limit up to 60 degrees Celsius and the flex temp, we should have a little over 1,400 feet, and we're only going to use 99.9% of the power of the engine instead of the full 109.9%. So we're going to go ahead and put our plus 60 in here. Plus 60. We're going to do packs off. This I had the flaps. This picked the optimal flap setting, which they said was 10. Our runway heading, our slope is 0. There is no slope in Flight Simulator. It's flat. And we have a headwind of 6. So we're going to do an H6. And our outside air temperature was 21 degrees Celsius. Oops. 21 C. And now this is what they're saying our V speeds are going to be. 144, 161, and 172. We'll confirm those, and it'll fill them in there. So now our takeoff is set. It's important to set your runway first before you set this. If you go right off to initial, do this, and then do the flight plan and put the thing in, it's going to delete these. You have to reconfirm it. It's not a big deal. Alright. So now everything in here is correct. We've set it. We now can go ahead and close that out. And we can start setting up the rest of the aircraft. Alright, our passengers are boarding at this point. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and make sure our thing is fueled, our aircraft is fueled, check for anything on the FMC2 menus, there's no issues there. Go ahead and close it out. Alright, we're going to change this from our plan mode to map mode. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take off here. And at this point we're going to turn to intercept that radial and then come on out. So we'll just go ahead and turn. We could even do it this way. We'll use a heading mode for that. So now we have our computer set. We are going to go ahead and make sure that our beacon, or all of our lights that need to be on currently are on. All this is off. There's no lights here. All these lights that are there are supposed to be on. We went ahead and I'll zoom into the overhead panel. We already did our fire test. We have the evacuation set to arm. Cargo fire is complete. Nav is all set to nav. There's no lights on. This isn't even simulated. Gallery bus, there are no faults. No lights are on. Our cargo and temperature is okay there. Engine ignition off. Windshield wipers are off at this time. Don't need any lights right now. Emergency lighting is armed. Test them. Lights work. Don't need runway light or don't need taxiway lighting, so we'll go ahead and turn on our seatbelt signs. No smoking signs. We're no longer fueling. There's all of our cross feeds are closed. These are supposed to be normal. The system is set to auto. Again, these are supposed to be available and on. We're on the ground power. APU is not on. The system is in auto. We don't have any pressure. Engines are not on. System is in auto. Yaw dampers are off at this time. They'll come on when the aircraft is powered up. This system is set to auto. Our engine anti-ice and wing anti-ice are off as we don't need it because we're in Hawaii. The first officer's wiper is off. We are going to go ahead and change our heading to the runway heading. We're going to check our flight plan. We don't, we just go to our top of climb. We don't have any big number. These had black letters. That would be a hard altitude we'd have, where we'd have to sit and hold and check it. There's nothing here. We're cleared all the way up to 18,000 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this to 18,000. Whoops. And our auto flight system is off. ATS auto throttle system off. Autopilot is off. These speeds are set and shown. TCAS at this point is off. That's normal. Taxi is at 0. That means we are able to move. I'm going to go down and do our TCAS test by pushing the button.
TCAS test.
You'll see the dots pop up. System is in test. System is in test.
TCAS test pass.
Okay. Another thing we have to do is, now that we have our passengers boarded and all of our fuel on board, this center gravity 27.2 has changed. So we're going to go to our initial approach. Scan to that page. See, now it's at 23.2. Well, we've added all the fuel, so that's changed it. So you could either manually type that number in there or right click, left click. And our stabilizer trim is going to be 4.4. So see that green number right there, 2.9. Green is good. That means we're within the range, but it's not maximum right now. So we're going to set our stabilizer trim to 4.4 after we do our pushback. Alright, at this point I'm going to go ahead and close our doors using the door utility. So you hit menu, FS shortcuts, and hopefully the doors close. Cabin door. Close. Sweet. We're going to go ahead and arm those up. Door's still open, so it can't be armed. Doors are armed. Basically what that would be is like doing your call to the... It simulates calling the cabin crew and telling them to lock the door. So our cabin doors are closed and locked. We need to go back to the cargo doors and shut our cargo doors. And these should start popping off. Okay, all of our yellow is done. We still have a yellow configuration light. Need to figure out what that is. So to find out, down here you see that these little ones have lights. So if you click on it, it opens up. Data flight and voice recorder are off. That's normal. Our engines are off. That's supposed to be that way. This is saying that our takeoff is not set. So we need to set that to RTO. That's clear. All yellow is gone. Blue is just informational. These are all normal at this time. Go ahead and set our speed brake up. No. Alright. So again, we're going to check, make sure everything is set here. Our altimeters are not set. We said it was 3006, so set the barometer by rotating it to 30.6. Alright. We are going to just be going to 18,000 feet. We will not be changing into thing, because we're going to be at 1,800 feet. We're not going to be at a flight level, so we're not going to transition into the 299 to barometer. Alright. This aircraft does not have weather radar. PMDG aircraft does not simulate it. It says you could buy programs you could open up a little radar screen by hitting one of the shift number keys. And to me, it's not that big of a deal. We're in a simulator. Just fly around it. Alright, we said we're going to use our takeoff flaps of 10, so we're going to rotate the dial of flap to 10. What this dial of flap is, McDonnell Douglas, when they designed the MD-11, has a range of flap settings in half degrees from 10 all the way up to 25, I believe. What you would do is anything in this range is a dial flap. So the first time you hit the button to lower the flaps, you're going to lower spoilers. Second button is going to drop the flaps down into the dial flap range. So we said that our takeoff is going to be 10. So we'll go ahead and leave it at 10. Parking brake is set. This is all good. And we have our takeoff is down to RTO. We're going to set our barometer on here to R306. This is a backup in case we have a failure of these. And we're going to go ahead and start our APU by doing this on auto start. We're going to go ahead and click power on. You'll see it's blinking on. And we're going to arm this to on. So once it's available, it'll automatically transfer to the APU. Power here will automatically transfer to the APU. These blue lights will go off. The green light available will stay on until we disconnect it from the menu. Alright, and we could also check that by switching down here to the engine page, and you can see that the APU is open up on here. While that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and set up our departure and find out what runway we're going to be flying out on here. Alright. We're going to be going off of this runway right here, 26. So we're going to need to turn the tail. The nose is going to go to the left, tail is going to go to the right. So we'll go back into the cockpit. Set up our pushback. Let's see here, 40, we'll say 45 yards. We're going to do a nose left, and we're going to do it at 90 degrees. Alright. Now we're going to check to make sure our APU is now full. It's at 100% down there, which means it's probably got the load. It has taken the load. It's on. This is on. We can go ahead and disconnect these. Nothing is shut off, so that means the APU is running on it. Go to the shortcuts, ground connection, disconnect, disconnect. Go back to here, and we will start our pushback. All the information is still in there.
And
click start.
Ground cockpit.
Go ahead, Captain.
We're all set to go up here. We've been cleared to push and start at your discretion.
Roger that, ready for push. Power and air clear, doors closed. We are ready for pushback. Release parking brake, please.
Okay, tell us to release it.
Okay, parking brake is off, cleared to push.
Brakes off, here we go.
Alright, we are cleared to start our engine, so we're going to go ahead and turn on our starter there. You'll hear the air conditioner shut off automatically. This start sequence is 3, 1, and 2. So you'll pull up on the starter, red light comes on, power starts coming in. Once it hits that blue line right there, which is about 12%, add the power. And engine 1's going to start spooling up. Okay, starter is turned off. We can go ahead and do this for engine 3. I'm sorry, engine 1. Power on. And 2 is rising. And 2 is at 12%. Hit the starter. Whoa. Oh, I'm impressed with how perfect I lined that up right there. Alright, they want us to set the parking brake.
Alright, brakes are set and pressure's normal.
And we can go ahead and start engine number 2.
Okay, sir. Tow bar is on. Pin is out. Watch for the pin on the right.
Numbers are up.
Alright guys, thanks. You're cleared to disconnect. We will be watching for the pin and the release from guidance on the right side of the airplane, and we'll see you guys next time through.
12%.
Roger that. Have a good
Now, I guessed on that distance, and let's see how well the nose wheels lined up with that. Ha! I couldn't have done it any better. Proud of myself.